Okay.
Oh my gosh, we are live here from Contact in the Desert 2018. Ben and I just got out of a little conference between David Wilcock and Emery Smith.
That thing was like 4 hour, 3.5 hours long or something. I mean, they talked about things that David Wilcock never even knew that Emery Smith knew.
Yeah, it was like they even said on stage that it was like an entire season of Cosmic Disclosure in like 3 hours. And Ben and I were just sitting back there the whole time like, I was great. Okay, and then okay, so let's get right into this. Let's start talking about Ben. What was the weirdest thing you heard in there?
I don't even know where to start. Seriously, I mean, there was just so much that was said. For me, oh my gosh, I know. I have to hold the mic up really close. So the craziest thing that Emery Smith was talking, I mean, well, this gets a little bit more the darker side, but they have this technology. He was talking like, so he was at home, and all of a sudden he sees these like shadow beings in his room, like trying to like grab him, attack him in his home, and he was like running everywhere and stuff. So he was explaining how the military or whoever, the shadow government or whoever they are,
Whoever was after him.
yeah. So have this technology where they they're in a gigantic room, like huge room, and they put on this suit and they can kind of phase where they're half there and half projected somewhere else. So when they project somewhere else, they only use like a certain percentage of their body, and if they use a little bit more, they can like pick up objects and whatnot. But he was saying so they go there and they were actually putting bugs and stuff like wiretaps in his home. But he caught them doing this and saw them, and he actually got in a physical fight with one of them.
And he said he got his butt kicked because he couldn't touch him or punch him. He was like punching through them.
Yeah, and then so he would say, and then they would at the right moment they would get more madder. So every time they would punch, they would punch him, and then when he would fight back, it was
It's like a dial you can turn up
Yeah.
in terms of how much of your physical body apparently or that substance is over on that side. And I mean, it was a really strange story. And he had a couple of experiences where he just got his butt kicked by these like projected beings, whatever they were.
Yeah, so I mean it was crazy, and so he was saying that eventually they were end up chasing them, and they just like went through the wall and then disappeared.
Now, Emery Smith knows a lot of different stuff, and there were people asking him questions. We sat through a Q&A before this last panel. One of the questions, and this is probably one of my favorite things that was discussed, just because it doesn't really get enough airtime, was somebody was asked about Bigfoot, whether Bigfoot was an extraterrestrial or not. And Emery actually had an answer. And this was the best part, right? So he basically said, he used to live in the Everglades, and in the Everglades, they actually call Bigfoot this thing called skunk apes. And the reason why they call them skunk apes,
Because they smell so
they
bad.
smell terrible. And Corey Good had a story of seeing one too. Now the cool thing is that he was able to explain why the Bigfoot are so you don't see them very often, and the reason is because they're not normal like terrestrial beings or like beings on spacecraft. These things are actually interdimensional beings that come here to Earth to forage, or they grow things and harvest and then go away. And so apparently it's a very strange race of beings, and that this is basically what they do. And so Ben and I, again, we're just sitting back there like, oh my gosh, right? Because everybody's been trying to figure out Bigfoot all the time. I mean, what a waste of a show finding Bigfoot is now that you know that.
Yeah, but I mean, he told this whole story about how he was in the woods and then he like smelled something really bad. Like he's
Corey was giving
Corey
that.
was saying that.
Corey was giving that. So Corey saw one too, and Corey was giving this this story about it. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, he came across something he saw in like kind of a few hundred couple like maybe 100 feet away or something. He smelled something or he saw this thing, he smelled this thing really bad, and he just got a horrible feeling, and he just like took off running.
Yeah, he got this strange visceral feeling like he was in danger, and so he just turned around and started sprinting, and then the person that was with him started sprinting too, apparently. And so apparently, like, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's going on with Bigfoot. We've found out now. We don't even need to do another episode on it anymore.
But yeah, the way Emery Smith described it, I mean, he has so many crazy experiences, and they just are so out there. But it's just the way he just tells the stories. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah, and then
It's just like coffee talk with
yeah,
Emery Smith.
it really is. It's just like, yeah, let's sit down with coffee, and I'll tell you all about time travel and multi-dimension beings and portals and all kinds of stuff.
Another one of my favorite stories, and if you know my personality, you'll understand why this was one of my favorite stories. But he's talking about how he's in this like conference room with a bunch of people, and two beings away, there's this like hybridized like reptilian being right next to him, and he was describing that like he never really has a problem dealing with extraterrestrials, but he had a real problem in this meeting because apparently those types of hybridized reptilian slash human beings, they don't they don't give their gas off the same way we do. You know, humans fart, right? And so this being actually, the smell just comes through their pores. And so at a certain point in the meeting, he just was like, you guys, I can't do this. I have to put my spacesuit back on. And he looked over at the reptilian being, and the reptilian being was like looking at him all upset.
Because it was reading his thoughts and knew exactly what he was thinking, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this being like knows what I'm thinking and is giving me a horrible look," you know.
And then actually it was really funny. David Wilcock and Emery just went off for like 5 minutes on gas, actually. So it was really actually very funny.
It was so funny because they were saying, you know, like even Emery Smith is like, you know, on Gaia they're very serious, and you know how he talks, and Emery's like, man, you know, I wish we could just be fun with it and have fun and smile more.
It
But
was so much different than one of the, because you guys probably watching Cosmic Disclosure like Ben and I, right? And so it was really funny because, you know, Cosmic Disclosure, they're just sitting there and it's like so much hardship, so serious. But these guys were just really funny. Emery Smith is super funny. I had no idea.
yeah, he's a blast in fact, actually I had a really special treat last night because they had this like kind of meditation thing, and then everyone went out and they're actually doing a specific method to try to communicate with UFOs actually.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was one of the best things I've experienced this entire trip. It was phenomenal. And I actually had just kind of a regular chat with Emery, just talking to him about some of the stuff that he's working on, some of the future things that he's working on. They're really trying to put out this documentary series on Gaia that's going to some of the secret locations.
Like he mentioned going to Antarctica, going to like Chile, going to some of these like bases and stuff like that. I mean, it would be awesome if he could blow the, you know.
Yeah, and he's working on it. So we'll get into probably way detail about what happened last night, but they did this specific method, and he didn't go actually. You were like too tired, and I was like, I want to check this out. And
Ben was cooler than me.
so anyway, so we went, and so we were meditating, and then we were just kind of looking at the sky, and they were shining this light specifically. It was a very powerful laser that they were shining. And the funniest thing happened actually, where all of a sudden we see this thing going across the sky, and there was this green light that was coming off of it, and everyone's like, look, there it is, UFO. We're like, wow. And then we realized it was a bird. and there was another green light coming off, and it was a hawk from the hotel that we're staying at, and this guy's training the hawk with this green light, and we're like, oh, okay. It was
Ben
really
just
funny.
blew the top off of half of the UFO sightings in the United States.
It's all birds. But no. So then what actually happened is, as we were sitting there, we actually started seeing these huge, long streams of blue lights just going across the sky. And actually, I was sitting with the cameraman, Dan. Here, let me hold the camera, Dan. Okay. I was gonna show you. So anyway, sitting with Dan, and then one of them actually passed in between us. And I saw it. It was really quick, but I saw it go in between us, and I was like, what the heck, you know? And then Emery was like, yeah, see all these streaks in the sky, right? And he said, what they're doing right now is they're actually surveying everybody who is here. They're getting like a technical readout of like everyone's thoughts, what's going on in the whole entire area. And he said, you have to realize that they don't come from the sky. They're not like, it's not like they're actually coming from another dimension. And he's like, they can even come up from the ground. They can just like appear right in front of you. He's like, it doesn't have to necessarily be in the sky. But he's like, because we're around like an airport and because there's like city and everything else, he said they're sometimes a little bit weary about it. And it's just, I mean, he does this a lot, I guess. And sure enough, like they were flashing this light like 3 times. And then, I mean, there's no way an aircraft could have done this because it was too much in the sky. It covered too much of the sky.
Actually, one of the really interesting. Oh, you're not done.
No. So what happened was they were flashing this light 3 times, and he says they will respond with the same thing 3 times. So we see this blue light coming down, and it was like blink, blink, blink. It did, and it couldn't have been an airplane because it covered too much of a distance in way too short of time. So it was, and a lot of people saw it, but not everybody saw it. And I was just like, wow. And it was like right in front of me. And I was like, wow. So we actually saw a UFO last night.
There you go. Ben finally saw a UFO.
Well,
actually, he's seen more.
Yeah, that's like my 4th one.
Yeah, I've seen a few too, actually. Okay, so one of the interesting things that I actually learned here, and I had my theories on this, but that a lot of people think like, oh, these UFOs are flying through space and all of this stuff, and then they come here in these huge metal discs. And one of the things that they were saying is it's not really like that. It's like the ships themselves can actually like just dimensionally shift. So they go through a dimension and then come through another dimension, and they're just here. You're just automatic, like it's just automatically there. And when that ship comes from wherever it's coming from, it actually ends up bringing a bit of its atmosphere with it. Yeah. So the atmosphere is coming along with it. And he was telling this crazy story about how he was on a mountain. It was like negative 20 degrees, and this ship appeared over where he was. And
he actually said it came underneath, and then this like dome formed around them. And this was like negative like 20, 30 degrees, like you said. And they were like freezing, and then all of a sudden he said it got to like around 80 degrees.
Yeah,
it was
they were like all taking their jackets off and stuff. And okay, so the atmosphere thing is like, this is like a really kind of crazy thing, right? So what he was saying is how he can tell whether or not extraterrestrial beings are actually near or that he's going to get visited is that what he'll do is, and he's like, I've never told anyone this before. It's actually it's a really simple thing, is that when the atmosphere comes over, it's actually changing the pressure around you. So what you can do is you can take a bottle, a plastic bottle. Yeah, I know. So you take a bottle that's like half full of water, like, and screw the cap back on. And if something approaches that's extraterrestrial, because the pressure around that changes, the bottle will actually tighten up, and you'll hear it pop. Yeah, you'll hear the bottle pop, and that's how you know whether or not these things are around or not.
So after he got done telling the story, he had a bottle that he was drinking, and he just did that. He crunched it up and put the lid on. Yeah. And David Wilcock started talking about time travel. Actually, I actually asked a question about the Mandela effect, like really what's going on,
No, hey, let's put this. Let's say this properly. Ben didn't ask a question about the Mandela effect. Ben stood up in front of everyone and was just like, "Hey, Emery. Hey, David, have you heard of the Mandela effect?" In front of everyone, and everyone was just like, "Who the heck is this guy?" It was kind of awesome, actually. He's like, "I just did a show on this." And then he was saying all this stuff about like mirror, because the reason why is because Emery kept saying mirror, mirror on the wall over and over again, and Ben was like, "It's not mirror, mirror anymore. It's magic mirror. Can you talk about this? What's going?" And then some guy who's like right near, he's like, "Yeah, CERN's behind it." And then, so actually, like, I was like, wow, all you need to do is take Ben to one of these conferences, and he's like walking marketing for your show. This is brilliant. He's laughing too hard. All right. So anyway, so he asked the question, and David Wilcock actually knew quite a bit about it. But what this did, which was really funny, is it actually guided the entire conversation into this huge discussion about time and time travel and all of this stuff. And if you watch our videos on time travel, they were actually literally spot on, which I was really happy. Like Ben wasn't that close to me at the time because he was busy screaming in front of a crowd. but actually, I wanted to pat him on the back because like we did all that research and it was actually really close. So what happens is you really can't like this was a whole insane discussion about what happens to your body when you time travel. There's different forms of time travel. Some time travel and he was saying that we've perfected time travel and like there's all of these we've gone through periods of perfecting it and then it being all messed up and then perfecting it again and all of these different things.
Well, and the main thing he said is that time actually corrects it like knows when something is being messed up and it readjusts itself.
It's like nature. It's
Yeah.
like nature actually it just totally corrects itself.
Yeah, I mean
that was interesting.
he actually was talking about time as a being, like it's some form of like this energetic being. I
One
guess.
of the crazy stories that David Wilcock told was this guy who actually had some kind of access to this technology and had such hate for his father that he went back in time. He was yeah, so he's part yeah, he had access to this, right? He's part of this program. He has such hate for his father that he goes back in time and offs his father. No one had ever done this before. And then he comes back to this time, and everyone's like, oh, he's fine, right? The next day he walks outside, he gets hit by a car.
Dies.
Totally dies, like gone. And it was like, and the way David and Emery kind of, because they were both kind of like, the way that they described it was, nature basically just corrects itself. Like, yeah, you're not on this timeline anymore because your father never made it. So, like, why are you here? And now you have to go. Of course, there are probably other karmic reasons for that whole thing as well. But holy cow, I mean, that was a crazy story, right?
That was crazy. That was crazy. Yeah, I was really impressed how they just completely had like a 25-minute discussion on time travel after I was like talking about that. So yeah, I was looking at yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
guys,
I
how you
saw
doing?
yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Let's see what questions are coming up. Pop. Let's see. Wow. Um, yeah, all of this is crazy.
Yeah, you look at questions, and I'll keep talking and telling you guys about the weird stuff they talked about. Okay, portals. So they talked about portals too. Okay, and what Emery was saying is that he got involved in, he's a like a physician, right, or a medical guy. So he was being, I don't know exactly what to call him, to be honest, but anyway, he got involved in a bunch of these missions, and he would have to go through these portals to these other planets. And the way he described it is, of course, before humans would travel over to these planets, they would send probes like a million times to make sure that like everything was okay there. And he would like go with a team of people, and if something happened to anyone, he would like help them basically while he was there because he's a doctor, right? Okay, so the thing with portal technology apparently is, at least our portal technology isn't really uh, perfected. So like a lot of people have been dying from this portal technology. And so he actually, when they tried to get him involved just recently, like over the last, I guess, several months, everyone that he was working with, like his entire crew, had died from this like portal project that's going on. So he kind of like decided not to get involved, which is probably a really wise decision because who'd want to die walking through a portal? I mean, it just sounds kind of crazy. Now, what they were talking about too is this discussion then went off into like other world, like actually like natural portal technologies that are on the Earth and under the oceans and all of these different places, and we can go into some of that. Did you have any questions that you want to answer?
Actually, well, I was just kind of going through some of these. I just lost it. But anyway, so someone mentioned that what I was seeing could have been a drone, but I just want to comment on that. There's no way. One, no one here has a drone. Two, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Three, it was too high in the sky and it was going way too fast to be a drone. Drones don't go like hundreds of miles per hour. I mean, it was too fast for an airplane. Really? So yeah, I mean, this thing was going very, very fast. So there's no way it could have been a drone. And besides, we were seeing other things too. I mean, people were getting photos of like blue orbs. Like when you were looking at your photos, you were getting blue orbs around the moon. There was other things going on too. Other people saw other things that were happening. So it was just. But Emery was saying that normally they do these for a whole week, and then he's like sometimes like you'll literally see a big craft just like right above you that will just like manifest. And so and the other thing was the big thing that happened was people started hearing this weird cracking sound, but only if
It was all of Emery's bottles.
yeah, maybe it was.
No.
No, but seriously, but they started hearing the sound, and only a few people were starting to hear it. And they were like, one person went to Emery and were like, Emery, we're hearing this weird cracking sound. Like, we don't know what this is. And he's like, you guys heard that? And they were like, yeah. And he's like, that's the ships. He's like, when the UFOs start, when they come in our dimension and they phase back out, there's this weird sound that happens, and he's like, it's this cracking sound. Yeah, and he said it's interesting. You could be in a circle and standing next to people, and maybe like one of you guys hear it, and the other ones don't. Or he's like, maybe only a few people are hearing it.
There was
So-
a bunch of people outside, so it must have been a bunch of people.
yeah,
here.
there was quite a few people that heard it, so he was really excited about that. He was like, yeah, that's a good thing. That means they're here, And we were just like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a lot of crazy stuff like that. But yeah, let's see. What?
So we haven't. I don't know that we've met any aliens here, but there were a couple of people that. Oh no, and it's not like they looked like they were dressed weird or they were like purposely making themselves dress weird, but there were like, just being honest with you, there were a couple people here that had like extra large eyes that fit the description of what Ben and I have been researching as how some different beings actually look. And a couple of them I didn't make like complete contact with, but like there could potentially have been, but of course, whoever knows really, right? And you're not going to just go up to someone and be like, hey, are you an alien? Yeah. And I was thinking about doing that, but I was like, nah, I don't want to make them uncomfortable if they're not, because then they're going to be like, do I look weird? What's the matter with me?
Actually, there was one girl that I talked to.
Oh, she was?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because we got in a really. Actually, it was. I don't know if we recorded.
Was she one of those hippie aliens? Or
No,
was she, like,
no.
actually an alien?
We recorded her because we actually interviewed her, but I don't think we talked about that part. I think we left that part out. But as we were talking for a while, I just got a really strong sense from her, and I said your eyes are different, and I was like I can tell that something but she was
a little extra in there.
yeah, she just had a little bit bigger eyes, and she told me, she was just like, yeah, I mean, she's obviously human, but it's like she started talking to me about how she was abducted early age, but she doesn't have any. She said her abductions were all benevolent abductions, where she was with like the Nordics. They were talking to her as a little kid, and she just kind of remembered this, and she feels very strong connections with them. And so a lot of interesting people. But it was kind of interesting because before she was telling me that, I already knew that from her. Like, I could just sense it. I could sense it. I mean, it's kind of weird saying this, like, with you guys, but I have some
vibes people are giving off here.
For sure. I mean, I haven't. There's only been like a couple negative things that I felt, and from those people, I'm just like, I'm gonna not even talk to them, and I don't even want to say who they are.
That's actually been one of the most interesting things about this conference is like how positive it's been. I mean, like the people here, like they're not just being like, we saw aliens. Like everyone's just like, look, you guys need to start working on yourselves. And like you should, if you want to have the like blessing to be communicating with other types of beings, then you actually have to start like working internally. And like this is what seems to be like Corey's whole message. And yeah, and this is the thing.
Eisenhower, Emery, I mean, everybody's message is that, if you truly want to like reach out, it's like they're always there. It's actually about truly looking at yourself, changing yourself, becoming a better person, aligning yourself with like your own positive energies, becoming more positive, becoming more compassionate to others, and really putting this energy in the forefront.
And the main thing is like people can make fun of everyone here as much as they want, but if that's what they're focused on, they're a lot clearer than almost everyone else out there right now. Because, I mean, you can just go ahead and take a look at our comments in the Flat Earth section or anywhere else. There's a lot of people not working on themselves. Yeah, but hey, I mean, everybody's where they're at, and that's cool. But yeah, that's just been a very positive conference. There's a lot of really interesting talk of technologies, especially surrounding Emery Smith, that have to do with regeneration, like different crazy pills that people are taking, and water, as we mentioned, and stuff like that. Ben and I have got our hands on a few of those, and one of them is called Zeta, something like that, right? And we're gonna actually go through and do like a week challenge where we'll pull it out for you so you can see it. I don't think this stuff is on Amazon yet.
No, I mean, and it's not. I mean, again, this is not like heal or cure anything. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not like that at all. It's just supposed to be kind of heightened focus and whatnot, and
Like
we'll just try it.
bulletproof coffee or something.
Yeah, that's kind of it. We'll just give it a try, see how we feel over. And we can test it out. It's all it has in it is just herbs anyway. It's not like it's some crazy thing that has like some secret ingredient or something.
Not the weird kind of herbs either.
Yeah. But that we get all the comments for. With some of the conversations here, it's like I'm sure everyone, like, that's the topic. Like, are you on drugs? It's like, no, of course not.
Just so y'all's know, Ben and I have been clean for a really long time. Yeah.
But going back, I forgot the girl I was talking about. She wasn't abducted. They visited her. Yeah. It was, sorry. There was somebody else that I was thinking of who was abducted, and I was getting two interviews confused. But anyway, she was not. She was not.
I want to kind of tell them about some of the interviews we've gotten and some of the episodes that we're going to be releasing, because there's some crazy stuff here.
Super crazy. We interviewed so many people.
We actually got to interview Emery Smith, and we're going to be publishing this in our Contact in the Desert video, right?
Yeah.
Who was notable for you that we got to interview?
I think Dr. Michael Sala was probably one of the best interviews that I mean, Emery Smith and Dr. Michael Sala, those two were phenomenal.
Biggest interviews that we got, right?
I think so too. And then Travis Walton, which we're going to be publishing tomorrow.
Yeah, we also got to interview. His name's what was his name? The guy, the pyramid fella. No.
Dr. Robert Schock.
Yes.
We interviewed.
We got to interview.
Yeah, who's a really big. I mean, he's actually a archaeologist.
Right?
Most people probably don't know who Billy Carson is.
Okay, so Dr. Schock is more on the front lines of the pyramid stuff, but Billy Carson also, who is, funny enough, hasn't really talked that much to Dr. Schock, but they're both researching the same thing, and both of them were able to tell us a lot of really interesting information about the pyramids. We're going to be sending out a couple of videos on our channel about those two interviews that we had, which were really super cool.
Yeah. And then we should get the book to find out. I mean, we interviewed so many people. Who else? Yeah.
The guy who like worked with the people who transcribed the Anunnaki tablets.
Oh yeah, that was fascinating interview.
He's been in this for a while. It was a really interesting interview and a really interesting message that he had, and his wife too, who's like been abducted like a ton or something.
Yeah, right? she had a crazy. That was the one I was getting confused with some of her story. If what?
No, so you know what? I'm not going to tell you. I want you to wait until you see that interview, because
it was mind-blowing.
It was shocking how old they are.
And then we also got in touch with Laura Eisenhower, and we did about a 40-minute interview with her. And that was awesome, because we were able to really focus on very specific questions with her, and she just gave a really awesome interview. She told more about her personal life and everything else growing up with all of this. So.
We got to talk to one of the biggest innovators in AI and technology, guy's named Adam Curry.
Yeah.
Awesome dude.
Yeah,
and
he's basically like, he's really young, and he's like an up-and-coming Elon Musk. What, Dan? 34. Well, he looks like he's like 20, man. Seriously, he's like 34, but I don't know. He said he was taking this new kind of
carbon 60 or something.
Yeah, I don't even know.
And the guy who made that is here anyway. We got to look more into that.
We were trying to find the guy who made this, some kind of like vitamin stuff he was taking, and he was crediting that to why he looks so young. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of others in here. So remember that moon video that we did that we've been telling you about? Well, yeah, we've been talking to some experts here that basically verified our information. what happened on the moon landings, and we're going to be having an episode on that at some time in the future, and we'll pull those interviews out when we do.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we were actually waiting for that one for this conference specifically because there was some very specific people that we wanted to talk to. Oh, sorry, that we wanted to talk to about it to just back up the information that we already knew, and they did, and it's like cool. Now we can make this video.
Okay, another really cool interview we had is we talked to John D'Souza, who was an ex-FBI agent. He left the FBI when that guy, what was his name? Comey. When Comey, he was like, you know what? He did research on Comey, and he was like, I don't feel comfortable in this job position anymore. I'm going to leave, right? And so actually, they call this guy the X-Man, which was awesome. The reason why they call him the X-Man is because a lot of the X-Files episodes were, yeah, they came from his like off the book records, and so a lot of what you're seeing on the X-Files actually came from this guy. So we sat down and got to talk to him about a lot of UFO sightings, the Atacama Desert being, all kinds of different things. We're gonna be releasing a video with him. That was super awesome.
You know, one of the other things too, which really I think really touched me really closely, is that so many people came up to us and was just like, "You guys are gonna be, like, your show's gonna do well." And I was just speechless every time. Even Adam Curry, when we interviewed him,
He actually doesn't like talking to people, but he really had. I felt like he actually really enjoyed talking to us. Which was
He did. Yeah, he actually said that. He's like, I'm a very introverted person. I don't like doing interviews or talking to people. And he's just like, but I'll talk to you guys, you know, I'll let you interview me. And I was just like, wow, cool. Okay, great. You know, so, and he
has like seriously, okay, and we have other sources that we're not telling you guys, but this guy has the best perspective on AI I've ever heard.
I agree.
It's
I
like
completely agree.
spot on, basically.
Yeah, I mean, this dude is like 34 and he's literally building like he already built an AI, man. It's crazy, but no, he didn't.
Like, not
I guess
a bad one.
no.
But
Well,
the way that
no.
he's describing it.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not with this company. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I think he's working or something.
At
Maybe
least
he didn't.
his understandings aren't
Yeah.
off. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, his understandings. I don't know if he built one, but anyway, maybe he didn't.
Well, yeah, he was saying.
What's going on? Okay, so now, yeah, I'm just sorry, guys. I'm just looking at the comments now. Ban Jojo's on here. Michael Childress. Sorry. Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for all your guys' support as well. I mean, right now, I know like we're trying to do better at communicating when we're going to be going live, and we're going to be using our Twitter account last. Oh yeah, and Emery Smith like retweeted some of the stuff that we did, so it's pretty cool. And I took tons and tons of great professional photos of these guys, and so all of them really wanted those photos too. So it's I think this is good. We made tons of contacts, talked to tons of people here. Everyone really seemed to be pretty really stoked about what we're doing, who we are, you know, and so I was just really impressed by that.
It was fun. It was just really fun meeting all of these different people, and it was really interesting. Like, what was cool about the environment is you really didn't have to worry about bringing any kind of weird phenomena you've experienced in your life up, and like listen to how people react to that and different experiences they've had, whether true or not or whatever. It's like you didn't have to feel strange about bringing it up, which is kind of different than living in mainstream Manhattan.
Well, yeah, it's very true. I mean, yeah, and I mean, I have tons of experiences that I haven't even begun to share, and we're just kind of figuring out what's the right time. You know, we don't really want to keep it too much about ourselves right now. I guess that's why we're talking about more of the show. So when the time is right, we'll slowly release some cool things that I personally experienced over my whole lifetime. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And man, I mean, I'm still blown away by that last panel with just David. And okay, another thing that actually we came across is we sat through a rehash of the past 100 or 150 years with David Wilcock, where basically he showed exactly how history and what really happened in history as far back as Lincoln going up all the way to what happened with Kennedy, what happened with the Oklahoma bombings, what happened with 9/11, and it was like the most comprehensive, and the way that he told that story and how he told it, like you could just tell that it was like he had everything lined up, right?
Right. And the interesting thing is, so I've been doing my own research on this for a lot of years now, like the things that he's been talking about, and not relating to what, like outside of the things he was talking about, it lined up pretty much perfectly with everything I've been researching on my own.
Right.
Coming up until 9/11, which that blew me away.
Yeah.
What he was talking about with 9/11, but aside
And the Oklahoma City
the
bombing.
Oklahoma
Like
City
exactly
bombing.
what happened with that, right?
But before that, yeah, and but he the way he organized it was just like perfect. I was like, wow, we could do a show on this, something similar like this, to just kind of explain the history of
Even
like,
one of those little
yeah,
things
one of
could
those,
be an
yeah.
entire episode.
but but yeah. Anyway, that was pretty cool. That was really
Totally
cool.
was.
Let's check the comments, see what's going on.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna check comments right now and see what we can do to answer you guys' questions about what's going on here.
This is kind of interesting. 9/11 woke demigod.
Oh, maybe, maybe, yeah.
Did you get?
There wasn't actually much discussion on reincarnation this weekend, which I was a little disappointed about. But I mean, most of it was mostly like technology, technology, not only crazy technology that they're using, but technology that you can use to heal you. That stuff that's out there that has been developed that they're just not telling us about. You know, like, oh, what's up? Thanks, Cody.
Oh my gosh, he sent me an
That's awesome. That's cool. I hope there's a ton of people walking around with Edge of Wonder t-shirts. Actually, you know, so many people have come up here at this conference because of our t-shirts and been like, yo, that's an awesome t-shirt. Like,
Yeah,
who are you guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of comments just saying how positive it is. Like one, actually, Adam told. This is what Adam said. He's like, most people when they're doing a show like yours, it's kind of dark and paranormal-ish and whatnot. And he's like, I just feel a really bright energy from you guys. And I was like, wow, that's really cool coming from you.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, I have a feeling we're going to end up doing some cool stuff here in the future with some of these people. Laura, I was really impressed by Laura Eisenhower's husband Kevin, who might actually be on right now.
What's up, Kevin, if you're watching.
Hey Kevin. So he was he was really impressed by everything that we've been doing.
Super encouraging about what we're doing and stuff. We really appreciate that.
That really moved me a lot. I was like really thankful about that. But
Well, I think we're about probably ready to wrap up our live session here at Contact in the Desert. This is probably going to be our last one here before we go home to Manhattan. Is there any other questions that you want to answer on here?
Anything on CERN?
Well, so we didn't.
Actually,
Go ahead.
I actually asked a question during one of Corey Good's interview or speeches, and we'll actually show that in one of the video. I've completely forgot about that, and I specifically asked about CERN, AI technology, and quantum computers. My mind just went blank. And he actually, I can't really remember fully what he said. I was kind of nervous when I was asking the question, so a lot of it I can't really remember. We'll do another episode on that whole segment of what he said. But basically, I mean, in a nutshell, he was just basically saying that, these things are like any kind of tool. You get it and put it in whoever is in charge of that tool or whatever their intentions are, that's the problem. So if you put it with these ETs or people who
The cabal.
whoever they are, right? Exactly. That have negative intentions, then it's going to be very negative. If you put it with people with compassion, then it's going to be a completely different experience and different outcome. So, and then I asked again specifically about CERN, but I think because it's a company, he didn't really want to specifically talk too much about it.
All he did was verify basically that if they are shooting particles at one another, it can actually end up coming across. I don't know how he explained it. We're gonna get the.
Well, we'll get the DVD and show that part. So. Compartmentalize. Here, let me have Dan explain it. He remembers it. Here, let me hold it, Dan.
Sure. How's it going, everybody? One thing that Ben asked was,
This is our camera guy.
One thing Ben asked is about how we're getting some comments from people who work at CERN, and they have, some things to say, some negative things to say, saying like, "Oh, this never happens at CERN." And what Corey Good was explaining is that a lot of these big organizations, they compartmentalize everything. So you might be working in CERN and not know exactly about all the projects that are happening there. So they might be doing particle acceleration, but at the same time, there might be a team. There's definitely a team that's working on something more than that, especially with these really, really big structures or really big organizations
Well,
like CERN.
and then the people that are doing the other scientific tasks might not know what these other people are doing, right? So if this is actually a project like that, and it's compartmentalized, well, it's very understandable how there would be a lot of people at CERN working at CERN who are in the dark, touting the science line, but then there's all this stuff going on behind
Yeah.
the scenes, right?
Basically, how the whole government works, how the whole,
Any operations, covert operations, right? Yeah.
it's all compartmentalized, and you don't know what's happening. Anyways, that's
Also, Dan's not just our cameraman. Dan's also our data guy, and he does an awesome job.
Yeah, he's like a genius when it comes to the data and all this stuff on YouTube and everything. He kind of directs how the thumb. He's like, you guys should do your thumbnails this way and this way and this way. And we're like, okay, cool. So,
Good description, Ben. Way to simplify things.
yeah.
Well,
But,
okay, so why don't we wrap up here?
I think so.
We're going to wrap up Contact in the Desert 2018. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. It was really fun, and we hope you learned a lot, and we told you some fun stories of what we just sat through because
yeah, I'm totally mind blown.
I know.
And we'll be doing a few more other videos, and I don't think we'll be going live again today. This is it, right?
no, we'll probably be interviewing some more people, though. But
What'd you say?
oh yeah, I mean,
Oh,
you guys should definitely come if you have the time and the energy. You should,
And the money.
and the money. You should get yourself out here because it's like all the stuff that they cover is just crazy. It's like, I mean, really, it's worth the weekend.
I really feel very changed after this weekend, like how much I understand now and what I learned and just the people I met, how everything has been here. I mean, it's just been phenomenal experience. So, oh, how many interviews do we have? I don't even know. 12 maybe?
It's like 15 interviews.
10 to 15, somewhere in
Which
there.
we're going to be trying to publish almost all of them separately, but some of them might be wrapped up into a conference in the desert.
And they're all different. They all explain different things. They all like had their own unique aspect to it. So it was just really cool.
Well, yeah, and it was cool too because I got you guys that live interview yesterday with Jim Vieira, who was like all about the Giants and stuff. We're gonna probably doing an episode on that soon, so it was fun.
Yeah. So, all right, you guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us and being with us all this time. And
Until next time, we'll see you out.
on the edge.